I have to say I do have a lot of time for the apocalyptic theories of Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock, particularly what they presented in the last few years pertaining to a possible cataclysmic global disaster which happened possibly around 11,500 years ago to 12,000 years ago. The evidence that these two men is presenting is increasing rapidly to the point where it deserves some serious scientific investigation, but unfortunately probably won't ever get it. Now, I've been watching a lot of their videos lately and they have been winning me over. But one of the things I want to talk about here is what happened in the immediate aftermath of this cataclysm, which destroyed a highly advanced ancient technological culture, a pre-pharaonic Egyptian culture, as well as all these megalithic cultures we see all over the world, the pre-Inca and so on, which definitely demonstrated a high level of engineering if the stonework that they've left behind is anything to go by. And it's not even counting all the things that would organically, such as metals and wood. We really don't know what they left. All we have is the traces of their stones and the remarkable engineering with their masonry that hints that these people were of a high technology culture. The most common interpretation of the cataclysm in terms of how it came about is a comet. It's quite plausible. In fact, it's very, very plausible. But no one ever really talks about what happens in the aftermath of the comet. And this is what I would like to talk about in this video. If a comet had in fact hit the Earth and caused this massive global dimming, which is basically the sunlight would not get through, it seems inconceivable that human beings would survive darkened Earth where vegetation would not be able to flourish, and likewise animals and large primates and also smaller primates would die. But human beings are far more resourceful than most other mammals and would have been able to survive on things like earthworms. Today we don't eat earthworms, we don't eat insects, but under the ground, under tree barks, you lift it up, there's vast amounts of nutrition for anybody willing to eat them. So the survivors of the cataclysm of 11,500 to 12,000 years ago would have easily survived living on things like insects and bugs that they would have found in abundance underneath the burnt earth. There would also be lots of survival within rivers and dark ponds. There are plenty of animals down there that live in darkness which could have been fished. So it's not inconceivable that a sizable number of humans who with the right ability to enact their bodily health and their bodily functions, and as well as their intuition and resourcefulness, would have survived. But it would have affected them very badly. And one of the ways it would have affected them is the darkness, the eternal darkness. Think about what this may have done to them. It would have caused a blindness of the human race. If you look at Paleolithic artwork, assuming came prior to the Carlson-Hancock proposed cataclysm, it was very beautiful and very complex rendered images of animals, humans and other forms. There was definitely a real aesthetic to the artwork by the Paleolithic people that still exists today as we see it. Well, what's interesting is that it didn't seem to increase in the Neolithic period, when basically art became symbols. We had the spiral, we had etchings, cross marks, hatchings, dots, and what they call the Star of David, the hexagram, and all these other shapes. The pentagram started to appear. Now, why did this happen? And why did humans suddenly begin to create these all over the world in the Neolithic period, in what may be the aftermath of the great cataclysm that wiped out the first great civilization? When humans are held in darkness for a long time, a phenomenon known as the prisoner cinema begins to manifest. It's believed that the reason for this is that the brain generates symbols inside the mind that you can see without your eyes to stop the optical cortex from shutting down. It's almost like a fail-safe switch. So while you're in total darkness, and this is what they know about it and why it's called the prisoner's cinema, is that prisoners held in darkness seeing all these specific shapes that became more complex and actually had a teaching function to them after a while. They were actually seeing what almost appeared to be movies in these line drawings and white appearing in the darkness, and that's where the name the prisoner cinema came from. These are commonly known as phosphenes. They're neurological form constants that are generated deep within the brain in order, it seems, to prevent optical cortex of the human brain from shutting down. So you had a situation where you had the surviving humans of the cataclysm wandering the blackened earth in darkness, and they would have been seeing these constant shapes all the time, manifested to compensate for the lack of sunlight and the eternal darkness. Remember, the moon would have been blocked out as well. It would have been quite a frightening and very, very daunting environment. The phosphenes switched on in order to keep the human optical cortex alive by throwing these shapes at them, spirals and so on. The same shapes that all appear within Neolithic artwork. So when human beings came out of the global dimming caused by the Comet disaster of 11,500 to 12,000 years ago, what happened was they were writing down these shapes and symbols and possibly developing a new way to communicate in terms of logos rather than verbal or other means. And this is probably how we developed their dynamic symbolism that we use in such abundance to this day. Interested in hearing more about this kind of thing, this weekend on Saturday at 7 p.m. GMT Irish UK time, I'm going to be taking part in an online seminar, Mysterious Egypt Symposium. I will be appearing at 7 p.m. GMT, which will allow all of you around the world to see me at a reasonable time. We picked that time because it seemed reasonable for North America and so on. You could watch it in the afternoon. I will be presenting information that will be completely new and completely interesting in my usual style, pertaining to the meaning of stones and why they exist and why they became objects of veneration in ways I've never spoken about before. Magical Egypt Symposium, and I will put the link down below, and it's a fabulous symposium that has lots of people whose names you're familiar with, not just mine, and hopefully I will see you on Saturday night. You'll be able to also, if you're part of the symposium, ask me questions live online, so it'll be a true global broadcast and symposium. Thank you very much.